Welcome to the Soul of Medicine. Welcome, everybody, to this week's podcast with LaVonna Willingham, talking about the Blue Zones. Welcome, LaVonna. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, we're so excited to have you on with us instead of behind the scenes. So we've got some exciting things to talk about. All right. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you. So everybody, this is LaVonna Willingham. She's a force of nature in Paducah, Kentucky, who's on a mission to transform lives through mindset coaching, functional medicine, and the power of the Blue Zones. As the owner of L&L Business Services and is our very own Patient Concierge at Soul of Medicine, LaVonna's entrepreneurial spirit shines through in everything that she does. This certified mindfulness coach has a passion for all things mindset and a gift for helping others unlock their full potential. LaVonna's journey into the world of Blue Zones began during her 15-week healing program in the Soul of Medicine back in 2022. At a low point in her health, she discovered the inspiring stories of the Blue Zones around the globe, where people live longer and healthier than anywhere else. A spark was lit. She envisioned a future for herself free from the diseases that had plagued her family and was determined to make it a reality for her. One of LaVonna's proudest accomplishments is completing the 30-day Blue Zone Challenge alongside her husband. Her motto, "You don't have to do it perfectly, just start where you are and keep getting better." Though through becoming a Blue Zones advocate and embarking on this challenge, LaVonna has found joy in reflecting on her journey and excitedly planning what's next. She's a firm believer that anyone can benefit from adopting the lifestyle habits of the Blue Zones, and she's dedicated to encouraging others every step of the way. In this episode, LaVonna will dive deep into the benefits of taking the Blue Zone Challenge, what to expect along the way, and how to make these life-changing principles a sustainable part of your daily life. So get ready, everybody, for an inspiring podcast episode and practical tips from this mindset coach, functional medicine advocate, and Blue Zones rock star. Yay!
That was one of the best intros and bios, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I think I could just
Well,
go
that's
enjoy
who
the
she
rest of my
is.
weekend.
She's a rock star all around. All right. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
I'm so excited to hang out with you guys. So yeah, I'm ready to dive into this and it's so exciting. You know, it's hopeful. There's just so many things here that anybody can adopt and change and help their health.
Awesome. So let's start out. So tell us what the Blue Zones are and how you first learned about them.
So, as you mentioned in the intro, in late 2022, I was looking for a holistic doctor, functional doctor, found you. I was having some health issues. And so when I started your program and was doing the Prolon fast, I don't remember if you mentioned the Blue Zones or I read a book, but that's when I got introduced to it. So I started Googling, researching all the things, and it's out there. All you have to do is look on their website. So that's where it started. And what the Blue Zones is, Dan Buettner, who is about 20 years ago, him and his team, he was worked with National Geographic Explorer, was researching pockets in the world where people live to 100. And they didn't have dementia, cancer, all the things. All of those things, the disease that we see real heavily here in America really wasn't in these little pockets of the world. And so with a blue marker, they started putting dots on the map. And so that's where the Blue Zones name came from.
Right. And then they also started to study these places, right? And just figure out, like, do they have commonalities? Is there something common with these pockets of people in these different parts of the world? And so, they started coming up with, okay, here's a list of what is common in all of them and how can we start to implement that in our lives, right?
Absolutely. So one of the things that stuck out to me was low levels of cortisol. And cortisol was not on my radar until I met you. And then when was doing a deep dive into root causes of what was going on with me, found out that my adrenal glands was overloaded. Cortisol levels were out the roof. And I'm like, well, what does all this mean? And so in the blue zones, their cortisol levels are low because of just the practices, their daily practices that they have. And so what Dan Buettner and his team did was they found 9 common things across each area, even though, one's in Okinawa, Japan, or Greece, Italy, Loma Linda, California, Costa Rica, even though there are different cultures, different, areas of the world, they still had 9 things in common. And so, anyway, did you want me to dive into those?
Sure. So name those top 9. The Power 9 is what they call them, right?
Yeah, they call them the Power 9. And so number 1 is move naturally. And so what they mean by that is their everyday life, they're moving, they're working, they do their gardening, whatever they're doing, they're bending, walking, using their joints, their knees, their hips, their arms. It's natural. Where our lifestyle these days is sedentary. We're sitting in a chair watching TV. We're sitting at a desk. We're in a car, going back and forth to work. And so in these areas, they continue to walk more. So moving naturally in whatever they do. Number 2, they all have a sense of purpose. The Okinawans call it ikigai, where it's why you wake up. What is it that you're designed to do? I've heard it. They've even dissected down to what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs. What you can get paid for. So if you're still working, and if you're retired, or of course they don't use the word retire in Okinawa, they just do their life's purpose till they die. So anyway, finding that purpose has given them hope, and that's what they get up for. Downshift was number 3. And so what that is probably a good area also to talk about the high levels of cortisol. So how can you lower that? But in downshifting, whether they take a minute, some of them maybe take naps in the afternoon. And how many of us would love to do that? Hey, you work an 8-hour, 10-hour day. I think I'll go home and take a 2-hour. But maybe they spend time in prayer or napping, or the Sardinians do the happy hour where they have that. I always say it wrong. Their special wine that they drink, get together with friends. So they downshift to just take a breath. And that's very important in getting that cortisol level low. Number 4 is the 80% rule. Hari Hachibu. I always say that, didn't say that right. Hari Hachibu is what they call it in Okinawa, but that is where when you feel 80% full, then stop eating. That way you're not overeating. You sleep better, keep your weight down. It's healthier for you. So that 80% rule. And that was a challenge with my husband and I, just trying that. I'm like, well, how do you know when you're 80% full? I'm like, let's eat slower. Let's be mindful. That was kind of cool doing these exercises. So number 5 is, they call it plant slant. So one thing they all have in common is the beans. They incorporate eating beans every day, fresh vegetables, fruits, things that maybe our grandparents did back in the day, where they did all their cooking, homemade cooking, not buying from a bag or a can or those kind of things. But definitely their diet is big with beans and vegetables. Number 6 is wine at 5. And so that goes back to, again, talking about the Sardinians, where it's not about the drinking as much as it is about the socializing and enjoying a family meal. And they don't just, they'll sip the wine, they'll smell the wine. It's just a whole experience where, and not to promote drinking, but it's all about just coming together as a community, their friends, their family. And even if you don't drink, you could still practice that, having family meals. I think that's kind of a lost art these days and my husband's always like, we need to have Sunday meals together with all our kids and grandkids. But coming together and just enjoying their food, their wine, and each other. Number 7, belonging. All of these zones had practiced some kind of faith, whether it's, church, faith-based, spirituality. So that's very important to them. Number 8 is loved ones first, where you might see a nursing home on every corner in a town you live in. I mean, they're popping up everywhere. They're not really big in these areas because they keep their parents and grandparents involved and around them, which in turn causes less depression. And they're still a very important part of the family. And so they keep them close with them. They're very important. And then the last one is right tribe. I've always heard that you are like your 3 or 5 closest friends, whether that's drinking, smoking, or eating well, working out, exercising, book clubs. You can fill that in with good or bad. And so having a healthy right tribe is what we all need to strive for. So those were the 9. Yeah.
So which of those Power 9 impacted your life and well-being the most?
Yes, I can tell you the one I need to work on the most is rekindling my friendships, because I'm a homebody. And so it was really, it was kind of a red light out there for me too. I really do need to foster those friendships a lot more since I'm working from home and just kind of shifted in how I work now. And I have a lot of friends. We just, so that one I need to work on more. Plant slant. So my husband and I thought our challenge in that would be not eating as much meat. I'm a cheese girl. So that one there really, we enjoyed it. We did maybe 2 or 3 new recipes a week. In the summertime, we grill hamburgers and hot dogs. And 4th of July, we did not even do that. We made our black bean burgers, which are amazing. I thought, how is a black bean with sweet potatoes and rolled oats going to taste good? He and I both love it. We love it better than a regular hamburger. And so we've gotten to where we even make a bunch at once and freeze them so we can have them just, hey, what's for lunch today? We'll just go get a burger and thaw it out. So I think we've had the most fun doing the recipes and things like that.
That's awesome. So that was during the 30-day Blue Zone Challenge, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And so people do have access to that. That's something that people can start on.
Absolutely. We actually bought the book. It's a really short, easy, quick read and fun, the Blue Zone Challenge. And it's 4 weeks long. Actually, it may be a little bit longer because your first week, you focus on reading through everything, getting your kitchen ready for foods. You have to take it's a happiness test, a vitality test, and a purpose test to try and see where you're at when you start. And then you retake that at the end. It's kind of fun.
No, that's really cool. That's like, wow.
Yeah, it is. And in the book, it also has, you can either physically fill it out, it asks you the questions, or you can take your phone and scan it and do it right on your phone, and the test pops up there. So it's really cool. So yeah, anybody can do it. I recommend if you're overwhelmed, if you're stuck in life, and wherever you're at, start with the 30-day challenge, because I am not a perfectionist, so I don't feel like if I didn't do every single thing that I'm a failure. I feel like if I took away 1 or 2 really good nuggets, I've succeeded at it. And so I would say we took away more than 1 or 2 good nuggets. And in the book, they also challenge you to turn around and do it another 30 days. And I think it goes up to 5 months. So it just kind of gets you in the habit of that. And it also encourages you to find a friend to do it with. If you can't find a group of people, find a friend. So that's why, all right, honey bun, you're going to do this with me. So we got all our stuff organized. We brought they encourage you to get little blue bracelets. So we wore those as we were doing it to remind us. We put together some blue notebooks, one with his name, one with my name. And we'd sit down weekly and kind of go through, all right, this is what this week's going to look like. And we'll just do the challenge together. So
was it more than just diet? Was it about incorporating those Power 9 in there as well?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It was about, going through all the Power 9, because in the beginning, like I said, you do a happiness test, you do a vitality test, which tells you 3 different ages. It tells you where you're at right then when you take the test, what your age, it gives you your age where they predict that you're going to, live to. And then it gives you, if you incorporate some of the Blue Zone things, then you could live this much longer. And then it gives you the Blue Zone age. So it's really kind of cool to compare the 3 when you start and then when you finish. And it goes along.
How much did you get?
Yeah. I improved, I think, by 5 years. So, yeah. And the thing is, you recognize the areas that you need to work on to make it better. But yeah. It definitely goes down. It follows the Power 9. So with the happiness test, the whole point in that is, well, are you spending time with your friends? Are you downshifting? Are you having some, reducing stress? And it kind of goes along with all of those, the Power 9. So yeah. And the 80% rule, I know we've kind of made a joke about it now. Have you hit your 80%? I think so. So yeah, it's really good. It does hit all of them.
So it sounds like, Blue Zones helps one evaluate and look at this as a lifestyle, because all of these things from the inside and the outside, from managing your own stress and finding purpose to having the community to be supportive too, which when all of those things are put together along with, nourishing yourself with food and with people and with purpose, really makes for adds to longevity versus like, okay, I'm going to do this diet over here and not change anything in my external world or not changing my mindset. You know what I mean? So that kind of approach of just maybe a diet, for example, is not always that transformative. I mean, it's kind of temporary.
Right. Right. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Dan Buettner actually talks about that. He has 4 different episodes. I think it's on Netflix now, but it's Live to 100, the Blue Zone lifestyle. And he talks about, we can go exercise at the gym and have diets, do a different diet and feel better. But if you don't incorporate the lowering the stress level, downshifting, being part of a community, whether it's volunteering or helping other people, because I think we were all designed to help each other. We were designed to be around people and to help each other out. And so it's feeling that connection and knowing that you've helped somebody and maybe you were the person that was helped out. We can't always be high on the mountain. Sometimes we may be going through grief or something sad. And then next time we may be the person encouraging our friends. But you definitely get energy and you feel better and happier. I think it was the pocket that was in Loma Linda, which is odd because all the other Blue Zones were like in an island or kind of secluded, where Loma Linda's right there smack in the middle of, busy California. But what they did was they really formed this community. It's the Seventh-day Adventist, where part of their religion or their spiritual practice is to exercise and is to eat healthy. And I always say in our church where I go, sometimes our favorite things is sit around and have a potluck and we may eat too much, or we have these all that, the Southern cooking, where we probably should shift some of that and have healthier foods and maybe go play some pickleball. And that's what they incorporate in the Loma Linda area is exercising together, being happy. And it seems like in all of the Blue Zones, when Dan Buettner is interviewing them, some of the people who are 80 plus and a couple of the ones that are 100, why do you think you've lived this long? And most of them will say, you can't be angry. You can't keep anger in your heart. You have to be happy. You have to be playful, be with your family. So even though diet, when we were talking about diet, is important, I think, when it gets to the core of your heart and your relationships with your friends and your family and your communities.
One of the biggest risk factors anymore for chronic illness and even morbidity and mortality is loneliness. I mean, that was hit an all-time around the pandemic because you can't do it all by yourself, and it is nice to share the load and, whether it's stress or having the economy go in your community, and sometimes we're so pushed on being independent and not needing anybody, and I can do this on my own, or you can do it by yourself. And what we do really crave is connection and how that can help, lower cortisol levels. So that really makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to one of my best friends, called me the other day, and she's like, we haven't done anything in about a month or probably a couple of months. And I'm like, I know. And when we get together, we laugh like 5-year-olds at a playground. I mean, I go home and I feel like I've had an ab workout. And so, you have to be intentional, because sometimes we get so comfortable and we just, another week goes by. And so they do encourage that as you go through this challenge, to put it on your calendar, to make effort into getting together with your closest friends and just having community and having fun, do a Blue Zone meal together. They even recommend that. And so I can't wait. I've told Lee, my husband, that once we've gone through this, I'm really trying to get my family into this, or even a pocket of friends, that we can do that. I don't know if I saw it on TV or somewhere. Maybe it was on TikTok, but it was a group of girls who got together, young ladies who each one of them brought a different blues meal. They had their wine or their kombucha or whatever it was that they were, representing, and sat around and shared that together and just enjoyed each other's company. So, yeah.
Awesome. So let's talk about one of those Power 9 Ikigai, which is our sense of purpose. And sometimes when we get into middle age and older, it's like we only think about, finding your purpose in your 20s and 30s when you're in college. And I think we stop that pursuit of development of our purpose or finding our purpose, and maybe our purpose changes depending upon where we are in our life cycle. And so if that's such a powerful aspect of longevity, that's something that we lose. And it's also not encouraged, to find that as we get mid-age and older, right? It's almost like, well, you had your purpose, and so you're just supposed to kind of do nothing and sit there or retire or whatever, like you said, that they don't believe in that word of retirement. Could you speak to the concept of Ikigai, and how can one have a clear sense of purpose to help impact our well-being and longevity?
Absolutely. That's probably one of my favorite subjects, because my husband and I are looking at, okay, in 5 years, retirement. Do we really want to retire? And what does that look like? And I remember when I was in college, one of my favorite professors was in his 80s. He didn't have to do it for the money. He did it. I could listen to him for days. He was such a good speaker. And I always said to myself, one day when I'm 80, I want to be doing what he's doing. Something that I absolutely love, that I'm designed to do, that can help others and help me. But so the Ikigai, as far as, speaking to someone later in life or looking at retirement, I think it's totally exciting, because, you're probably an empty nester at this point. Maybe you have some grandkids and your life does look different. So let's set some new goals, and let's think of things that maybe we didn't think about when our kids were home, or maybe we did dream about it. But so if you go back to what is something you're good at, what is something you love, what is something the world needs, and what can you get paid for? And even if you don't want to get paid for it, what is something that you could do if you wanted to get paid for it? And so there's a lot of different books, tests, and there is a purpose part in the 30-day challenge as well that kind of prompts you some really good questions, some good thoughty questions that will help you to maybe figure that out. And my husband and I have had a lot of fun with it, because we're talking about, instead of retiring, just doing what we love the rest of our life until we die or whatever. But our thing is to really spend time on what matters, not a 60-hour work week job, but maybe that looks like 10 hours a week. Maybe that looks 20 hours. But that means our grandkids right now, or maybe some of our friends, maybe traveling more. I did a class about a month ago at a group that is near and dear to my heart where I live, and the ladies there loved it. And I think I was more energized than they were. And so it's just finding that niche, finding that passion that you have, and just being intentional about writing it down. And maybe, sometimes people get lost. I'm going to retire. I can't wait to travel and do all these things. But then after, they've done their traveling, they've rested, they've read the 50 books. Now what? And so sometimes maybe a coach can help you. I've helped a few people with it.
Yeah. So there is this symbol of the Ikigai of overlap, right? Could you go over those major circles, because what's interesting is that there is a distinction between what a job is or what makes me money, and very rarely, with my kid going to college, it's in her brain of like, okay, what's the good job that's going to have X amount of income? And we don't really encourage, even in college, like, yeah, what you're good at, what the world needs, but also what lights you up. And then we have to kind of figure that out later on after we've worked our butts off and burned out and, whatever. So could you go over those circles and the overlap of Ikigai again for our audience?
Yes. So one of them is what you love, which is in the intersection of passion and a mission. What you're good at, which is at the intersection of your passion and your profession. What you can be paid for, which is at your intersection of profession and vocation. And then what the world needs. So that's your mission and your vocation.
It's really interesting studying the blue zone. So we're studying older people that made it to 100, right? But the thing is, they've had their purpose when they were younger. And I think that's the thing that we don't want to overlook. So in our society, in Western, we're going to college, we're doing the stuff, but it's usually society's beliefs, society's drive, and it's actually not our purpose at that point. So now we're talking about getting to this point of midlife, getting to this point of the second act, and let's find our purpose. I think what would be really amazing is spreading this to the younger generations, kind of as Kay was alluding to, her daughter going to college, and really focusing on this stuff because, that's really where the juice is. And, that's how we get to the 100, living longer, living better, because we've had that purpose all along. So that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the younger generation is hungry for, they don't want to work the 60-hour work weeks. I mean, we didn't really either, but here we are, we got caught up in all that.
Yeah, but they're bold enough to say something, and to kind of raise their hand. So it's cool.
Which I love it because, it goes back to surround yourself with the older people and the younger people, because we all have something to bring to the plate and we can all learn from each other, which is beautiful. So yeah, what lights you up? That's a great way of putting it.
Awesome. So what are some common challenges people face when adopting this Blue Zone lifestyle?
Well, so some of the common challenges are working the 40 to 60-hour work week. And so how do you, if you're sitting all day long, what can you do? Incorporate, maybe set an alarm on your watch, your phone or something to get up every hour and move around for 5 or 10 minutes, maybe get an ergonomic desk. There's so many things now. I think different apps have been put in place for that to help prompt you to do those things. Like with me working at home, I have gotten to where about every hour and a half, I'll get outside, take my dogs, ride my bike, which has absolutely almost healed my knee. I've had knee pain since I can remember, at 10 years old. And just by doing that regularly has helped. So incorporating walking, maybe at a lunch hour, get a walking buddy that can go with you, eat your lunch, go walk quickly, come back. So those are some things. Planning your food, being intentional, going through, as we went through the 30-day challenge, it encourages you to pick out 3 recipes and try those. Not 3 new ones a day, but 3 new ones for the week. So you're not overwhelmed with every single day I've got to try something new. You've tried something new for the week. And just like with Lee and I, prepping the burgers, and we just made extra. So we've put them in the freezer. So little things like that, when you're, oh my gosh, I'm in a hurry, what am I going to do? Instead of going to a fast food restaurant, you could just go thaw out your hamburger, your veggie burger, and eat it. Those are some things that we've changed and are still working on.
Well, it sounds like there's just much more consciousness and mindfulness about what goes in your mouth, when relational things that when we get busy, it's just like food is fuel. I need to go to bed and get up and work. You know what I mean? We just have this sort of monocular view of just getting through. And then somehow we are supposed to make it to 100. That just really doesn't, it's like throwing a dart at a dartboard and hoping that it hits. And I think with what you're saying and how Blue Zones has really brought to light is that it's, it's something that you live and breathe every day of your life, and the people that you hang out with and surround yourself with is also really important, right? And so, being in the Blue Zones too, and if you wanted, they promote even having Blue Zone cities, and they talk to the municipality about the sidewalks. Is this a walkable place, or you know what I mean? And not every city can really do that. I mean, you're going to have to rip up some sidewalks and create this entire area and space to make it Blue Zone certified or Blue Zone accurate, right? And so we're not always set up here in the States anyway to encourage these kinds of lifestyle changes, right? But I think having in the research, is really amazing on it, and seeing how people who have lived over 100 are really thriving and why they've thrived. I think it's really a brilliant study and a brilliant observation that Buettner had really put together here. So,
yeah. And I would say anybody would benefit from this. And I think people are craving to move slower, to spend time with their families, to hang out with their friends, instead of this rush here, rush there, overworked lifestyle that we've had. So I think we're craving it. And I think that they have partnered with more cities now that are catching on. And so you can even look that on their website and see all the cities that they've partnered with, which is kind of cool. So maybe it puts the pressure on to bring it to our hometown and things like that. And I actually think that we tried to do it several years ago. One of our local doctors tried to bring it here and we just didn't quite make it. But yeah, I think it's wonderful. We all need it.
Actually, about 12 years ago when I first came here, when I heard that, I actually inquired about that. I'm like, wow, you have to talk to all the local people and rip up the sidewalks, and okay, sounds like I'm not sure if I have all this energy to do this by myself right now, but it conceptually it sounds really amazing. So totally, absolutely. All right, wonderful. So how are we incorporating Blue Zones at Soul of Medicine?
Oh, yeah. How did we forget to mention that? So as I was talking about Blue Zones with you, you're like, hey, there's this program through Arizona State, and let's go through this. And it's to be Blue Zone advocate, which is amazing. Thank you very much for promoting that. And so when I went through that program, we went through it. We've started connecting and sending out emails through your 15-week program, kind of breaking this down into bite-sized pieces. So it's an email sent out to the patients on a little activity for them to do. And I've attached a mindset journal with it so they can journal through their 15 weeks and then reflect back on it. But they also can touch base with me, whether it's 30 days or 60 days or 90 days or just whenever they need, to maybe kind of help them with setting some goals, maybe to not be so overwhelmed, or wherever they're at, to walk with them through that. And so it's really exciting because, I'm one of your average patient that comes through the door, a female, 40 plus, maybe older than that, who we all, and not just that, but we're tired, we're not eating good, we don't feel good, our thyroid's out of control, our cortisol's up, and this Blue Zone diet it walks alongside exactly what you teach. And, getting to your emotional, your spiritual, your physical, your psychological, as a whole person with functional medicine. And this just aligns with that so beautiful. And so we've just started promoting it and offering it to your patients through their programs. And I actually just had my first mindset coaching with a patient a couple of days ago, and I think it went great. I think she was excited about it. Yeah. So, it's helping each other and encouraging each other. So I could see down the road, maybe, a group of your patients and us doing the 30-day challenge together, and how fun
Definitely.
would that be?
That was going through my mind right now, that we need to get that on the calendar, because as you were saying, I think the community is what's going to really help, instead of thinking, well, you're the only one this is happening too. And, there's so many benefits to being in community and going through these challenges and rising up above them together. So yes, absolutely. So we'll let our audience know when that begins. So that's awesome. Thank you. So is there anything else, LaVonna, any final words around the Blue Zones?
Oh, I've taken notes and read the books, and I just I tell people, just wherever you're at, just start somewhere. Look up the website, watch the videos on the streaming platforms or the episodes, and definitely get the challenge book. Like I said, it's small, it's easy, it's applicable, it's doable, it's not overwhelming. I mean, they break it down into bite-sized pieces, and just start there.
I love this. And you said, you heard about cortisol, and cortisol was low or in a low, normal, healthy area. And, when you started listing, the Power 9, it just reminds me when we look at our Western way of living, right? We look at our country, everything is so driven, right? It's almost like the throttle's fast forward. So for instance, when they say move naturally, they didn't use the word exercise. And I think that's for a reason, because exercise has a different denotation. So it's actually move naturally, right? So you don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to have a machine tell you what to do, but it's part of your lifestyle. So I think that was very interesting, but they did make a point to say downshift. So, one thing that comes to mind when you look at a very common supplement, ginseng. Asian ginseng is very popular in our country because it's stimulatory. When you go to the Orient, it's American ginseng because it's actually very calming. So, when we look at what our culture is doing and what these people are emulating, that's just another big thing on where our throttle is and how we drive ourselves. So that with the cortisol, that just kind of fell in line when you said that. So, yeah.
I love that. Yeah. I don't know all the patients' histories, but I think most of us that come through your door, our cortisol is up there. And not just your patients, but just Americans in general. Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's not now, it was. And now it's low.
Right.
Yeah.
And these are doable things. It's not, like you said, it's not gym memberships, and nothing that there's anything wrong with that, but it's things that you have in your backyard, your front yard, maybe a park down the road. It's like playing when you growing up when you were kids, maybe at your grandparents' house. I don't know. That's what I think about, but very doable. Yeah.
The other thing that you said too is, well, a lot of this, people think being healthy is expensive, and most of these societies actually live below the poverty line. So it's plant slant, rice, beans, plants, veggies, and herbs is really what they eat, and I'm sure some good wine that's local and probably not expensive either. But, nobody said, yeah, you're right, gym memberships, yoga class. I think because of our lifestyle, we've developed these sort of expensive things to manage the root cause when the root cause is really at our fingertips. It's not that extravagant. It's very simple. It's very logical. And so when we get back to the roots of what's important, like community, and I know one of the Power Nines is also, or some subset of it, is the grandma effect, with your grandma living with you, and making the sourdough bread, and, having sort of that influence on, and generational influence on here we just outsource our elderly, you know what I mean, instead of having them in the home. So it's a very different way of living, which the shift has to be pretty big, but it's actually going back to the way it was, right? So just highlighting that it's nothing new or we haven't heard before, and it all makes sense. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. I think we just all bought into bigger, better, fancier, gotta have it. And that's not what brings us happiness. I think it is being around our loved ones and slowing down and all those things. And something else this popped in my head, but somebody mentioned something the other day as far as our food goes, whether it's a bag of chips or whatever. It said, one of the reasons our bodies are breaking down is because we're not eating food. That is not food. If you look at the ingredients, our body doesn't recognize that as food. So, hence cancer and all the other things, dementia and arthritis and all these autoimmune diseases. We're not eating food. It's actually not food. So that's probably not a rocket science, thing. But when they put it like that, I'm like, well, you're right. It really isn't food. So, but yeah, having some home cooked meals and keeping it simple. I think we all crave it. We just didn't realize it.
Thank you so much, LaVonna, for talking all about it. And we can feel your enthusiasm over the waves here. So that's really great. So hopefully everybody will stay tuned to what's coming up next around Blue Zones and being a Blue Zone advocate. So spreading that more into the community and to our patients sounds amazing. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's fun. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Soul of Medicine podcast, where science meets soul for whole health healing. Are you ready to reclaim your energy, vitality, and soul purpose? Then feel free to head to our website at kcorpusmd.com and schedule an appointment for your root cause review.